From the bayous in Louisiana to the timber country up north, you'll find them out on the trap line, chasing furs to put up on the board, mixing up another batch of that magical stuff, chilling around the fire after the show. Hey, it's Sarah and Jeff, and maybe a guest on the Trapping Radio 2.0.
Hi, and welcome to tonight's episode of Trapping Radio 2.0. This is Jeff Dunlap, your host for this evening. I just been pretty much getting stuff around for the next convention. For if you don't do like ADC work, animal damage control, this is kind of a slow time of year. You can still be going out getting permissions and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're going to be real about it, it's just for trapping, it's a slow time of year. That's what's really nice about going to the conventions is you can go there and hang out with, like-minded people in your tribe and, have fun, talk about trapping, learn some stuff. And, that's, it's just awesome to go to the conventions and hang out and, lots of funny stuff and lots of big time memories happen there. We went out to the Pennsylvania convention. I'd like to thank Eric and all the guys that put that and ladies that put that on. It was just an awesome job. Eric is, a heck of a guy, and he really helped us out a lot. And, and they helped us unload, and, that was really appreciated. I can't thank them enough for, the Pennsylvania convention this year. One thing that happened is, be a memory my whole life will be, where me and Sarah are sitting with Tammy and Tommy Bryant, and, we're laughing, and, we get up and go over to another camp, Larry Miller's camp, or they call him the Hammer. So, or Two Sticks, and we go over there and it starts just pouring down rain. I mean, just buckets and buckets of rain. This is Saturday night. And when we go back to Tommy's camper that he had just bought, it was new to him, and their awning had broke off, from the rain. I guess you're supposed to put them away every time. If you're going to be gone for 30 seconds, you're supposed to put them away. I didn't know all this. But anyways, his awning is just like smashed right to the ground. And Tommy and Sarah are both laughing. And me and Tammy are more like-minded, looking like in shock. And then Tommy, they had put lights on this thing. And then he goes over to pick up the awning, and the lights just about electrocute him. So, and they got to unplug. So, that's one of them things that, we took pictures, but in my mind, I always will remember, their brand new camper to them, the awning smashed to the ground, Tommy standing in the middle of this thing, and Sarah and Tommy laughing, and me and Tammy are in shock. I'll always remember that. And, it's like anything in life. You don't make those, lifetime memories that really mean something to you. Sitting at home and, being around trappers who are kind of a crazy crowd anyways, and generally have a lot of laughs. You just seem to make even more memories. But we got a real schedule this year, a real big schedule on conventions. Fur Takers is generally in June, but they moved it to the week after National. So, we went to Pennsylvania, and normally we go to Fur Takers, then Pennsylvania, or Pennsylvania, and then Fur Takers. Generally that's what we'll do. But this time it's moved after the Nationals, so we'll be going to the Escanaba convention, and then coming home, and we'll be home for one day, Sunday. Then we'll leave Monday to go to the Nationals down to Virginia. And we'll leave there and go right to Iowa to the convention for the fur takers. And then we have to go from there up to Minnesota convention. And then we'll go to the Iowa State Fair after that. And then we'll leave there and go right to the Michigan convention. A week off, and then I believe off to New York show, and then right to Wisconsin, right to Indiana, Illinois, and West Virginia, and I can't remember the rest. So it's going to be like driving all over the freaking country this year. So, and it's a lot of fun. I get sick of the driving, but it's once you get set up, your booth's set up, it ain't that bad because you wait till after the doors close and everybody goes and has fun and hanging out and laughing and joking, and so it's lots of fun. If you are listening to this, never been to a trapping convention, you can walk up to any flyer you want and talk, and anybody's glad to have you. If you're a trapper, you're just one of us, and there's not many groups in the world that are like that, where everybody's just glad everybody's there. And so if you haven't ever been to a convention, want to look them up, which one's close to you or in your state, you can go on the NTA, National Trappers Association website, and under their calendar, you can mess around in there and you can find a lot of them. You also can Google, trapping conventions 2025, and, a bunch of them will pop up, or your state or whatever. So, that's how you'd find them. But they have lots of demos there. People are doing demos, teaching everything they know about trapping and on specific things most of the time. And it's just a lot of fun. And, I encourage you to go. You don't have to go there and buy anything. You probably will, but you don't have to. You go hang out, pay to get through the gate on some of them. Go hang out, watch 2 or 3 days of demos, and pick everybody's brain up there. Ask as many questions as you want, and you can do it all for either free to get through the gate or like $10-15. So. Anyways, it's just it's a lot of fun to go and hang out there and do that. Other thing I've been doing is we're getting stuff around, and Sarah went down to some family stuff in Iowa, but I've been getting the stuff around here for the conventions, and basically all them conventions in a row, and we've never hauled that much stuff before, but. What I started having happen here is I've had problems with raccoons before, but nothing like here this last 2 weeks. They've been getting into some of our oils and chewing the lids off. 5-gallon buckets taking the lids off somehow, knocking them over. The stuff spills out. They are in there eating on it, shitting on it, and basically. And we had some fish oil in the pole barn. On carts to wheel back onto the trailer. All went through, and anyways, they knocked over 1.5 gallons of fish oil, and it just went in all over the floor. So you walk in there and you see this, and you're like, I'm done playing this game. So, anyways, with the oil, if you ever have any oil spill, they sell this it's like a Duff powder stuff. I can't remember the name of it. But I went and bought a big bag of Floor Dry. But I seen this Duff stuff up on there. I thought, well, I'll try that first. I put that powder down, sprinkled it on there, and man, it just sucked it right out of the cement even, and it worked really good. So, you might want to look into that. I can't remember the exact name, but it was like a Duff powder. And they come in a little can, almost like a tennis ball can. You just sprinkle it all over the place, and it sucks it right up. So Sarah had caught one raccoon out here on cherry balls before she left for Iowa, and so when she left, she didn't ask me if I wanted to check the traps or not, so she just set the cage, the door down so they catch them because we had talked about it, I guess. And anyway, so they went over and chewed up some oils and stuff like that, beaver tail oil jugs, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna eliminate you. And so I moved the cage over there, and I put a DP across the yard, and then I had some catnip growing out here and back, and I planted some rhubarb out here in the back, and they go over there, and he's been planted for a month and a half, and anyways, they go back there, and something was digging them up. So I took and threw a drag out, saber-tooth drag with 10-footed changes. It was a bobcat coyote setup. Threw it out in the hayfield. Anyways, I buried, just blind setted that trap because I could see where, the grass was matted down. And anyways, and I set a DP there, and I set like 5 other DPs around the yard. And some good spots, some just, they got to come through here if they want to go up to the front where most of the stuff is. And first day I had one in the cage, and I had one in the blind set back there with the I guess it was a baited set with the growing the catnip. But the thing is they weren't eating they went and ate the rhubarb, the roots and everything, and left one leaf laying there, pulled it right out of the ground. But they're not eating the catnip, they're after the roots of the catnip. So, and it's like they just dig around down in there, with the fresh dirt. But the weird thing is there was 3 of them they dug up before, and I replanted them, and they always go back to that one, and that's where I've caught them all in that one. So, as a trapper, lure maker, I'm looking at this spot, and I'm like, what is here that was drawing them coon in to get to this spot? Because it's not the catnip, because there's other ones there and they're not bothering them. It's something in that hole. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I may never figure it out, but I'm trying, because I see something and I want to know why. Why are they going to that hole? Why are they keep digging the plant out and then keep digging in the hole after the plant's out? There's something down there, So anyway, so I caught those 2, and then the next day I caught one on the back of the property and one on the side. And then this morning I only had 1 coon caught, and it was right back there in that, what I'm calling the blind set, in that hole. So they come right back to that hole again, another one. So again, I like to figure out exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what's pulling them to that spot. But because if you pulled the catnip out of there, they would still go to that spot. So, and I dug the hole, so I know there's nothing hidden in there. So, anyway, so we've ended up with 2, 4, 6 raccoons out of our yard, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But some people, we got, got a chance to we can beat them down, know how to do it, just like you guys would, or women would know how to, if you had a problem with the raccoons, to take care of the problem. If I didn't know nothing about trapping, or taking care of a problem with the raccoons, I'd be like pulling my hair out. You'd have to hire somebody to come out and do it, or Google how to do it, and that's how we get people on our side. A lot of times is, they're against killing something until it's like shredding. If I was against killing stuff, and then they started destroying my property, my whole attitude would change. And so that's the good thing about having social media out there, is people can look that stuff up, and when they're they do have a problem, they're able to take care of it. So the other thing, a lot of people had asked about what we had done with our bobcats, because we caught 140 bobcats this year, and we went and sold those to Trevor Barnes, who we ended up selling them to, and we ended up right at it was like $99 and change So about $100 on, what we got for the 100. It wasn't 140 cats because we still got a bunch of in the carcass that we want to sell, cats, for taxidermy or whatever. They're really nice ones. So if you're looking for a cat for taxidermy and, are going to a convention, it's too hot to try and ship these things. I ain't building coolers and doing all that. If I'm going to a convention and you wanted one, I'll gladly, throw it in one of our big coolers or whatever, a couple of them, and haul them, to the convention. But as far as putting them in boxes, it's too damn hot, and I'm not sending them. I'll skid them next fall. I'll just skid them next fall and and put them up and sell them, for $100. I'll take the $200-300 loss on them just because I don't want to deal with it. So, but we, like I say, we did really good on them. Well, what it comes down to is I think that we could have gotten more, but here in northern Michigan, Jeff Haggerty was up beaver trapping. Sarah was beaver trapping down to Iowa. Just coming from the women's camp in Wisconsin, and we had a big ice storm and knocked the power out. Everything in northern Michigan was just devastated, and knocked the power out for a little over 2 weeks. And so that put us behind the 8 ball on putting up the cats, and so we were 2 to 3 weeks behind putting up the cats. And there becomes a point where people have moved past that seasonally, with the cats. And the other thing is there was other people with a lot of cats, and they had, were dumping their cats. I had sold, me and Sarah didn't want to haul. We had a few, 20 coon left in the freezer or something like that out to Iowa in the grease. And we took them to Iowa and met Gronwald at Funky's. And I already had the coon. If I wanted to put them up, I'd get $9 a piece off them. I have that same deal every year, $9. And, but that was the end of it, and we didn't want to run the freezer all year for the small amount of coon. And so we took them there and figured, well, whatever we get, I was figuring $5-6, Anyways, we ended up getting $2.50 for Iowa coon. And he said that if, it had been a few weeks ago, we would have, he'd have paid us $5 or $6. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'd sold him the cats last year for $100, and I met him at F&T, and I went in there, and he said that, let me take these with me. We had, 70, 80 cats, and that we were selling, and let me take them with me. If you don't like the price, I'll make arrangements to get them back to you. And I'm like, all right. So anyways, I go and tell him, how many cats we got this year. He goes, wow. He says, down to Funky's in Iowa. I said, so, well, you beat me up on the coon, I'll get you back on the cats, and so I was supposed to meet him back in Alpena, but we're traveling all over the country, and, we couldn't make it back from wherever we were in time. And so I called F&T to ask them if they would, because Gromwell had a pickup route there. Will you, tell them that, we'll just be going back out to Iowa at some point, and, I'll just, bring them out. So they told them, and I never heard anything. So anyways, we're getting ready to go to Iowa, and I said, I called there, and I said, hey, is a guy there? And he said, the guy answers the phone and says, no, can I help you with something? And I'm like, I wanted to talk to him about selling some cats. He asked how many we had, and I told him, I don't know, it was like 119, 120, something like that, that we had down the, stretched and dried. And I don't remember what his name was. Anyway, he says, well, what are you looking to get out of him? So I said, I'm looking to get $150. Now, last year they asked me what I wanted for him, and the cat market's better this year. So I'm not going to go in not the same thing. I'm going to go better. Am I thinking I'm going to get $150? No. But I'm going to go higher and then negotiate down. That's how this works. So I said, well, I'd like to get $150. He said, the cat market, isn't any better than what it was last year. What did we pay you last year? I said, $100. It's not no better. I'm like, every auction I'm seeing, which I fully understand, an auction is only that price for that day. But the trend is that every single auction is going up. It wasn't one guy's cherry picking one where it was a hot market with people just, buying. The trend was going up. And it had gone up until this fur harvesters, which is, the prices were still good. They just didn't sell all the cats, and who knows what they had, But he says, well, I don't know. Let me call my son. I don't remember. He was in some city in Canada, and see what he says. So I said, all right. So I'm waiting, figuring they're going to call back and, do like 110 or something like that, kind of dicker back and forth, this is how it's supposed to work. So anyways, he calls up and he says, you know what? We got enough of cats right now. My son said, we don't need them. We can't use them. And I'm like, okay. I hang up the phone. So Sarah starts telling me, oh, it's not personal. I said, well, it feels kind of personal. He had kind of a shitty attitude on the phone towards me. And I said, it feels kind of personal, but I'll take your thing. Well, I keep mulling this over in my head, right? So I'm mulling it over. And I'm like, if they didn't need any more cats, why were I supposed to meet him in Alpena like a week or two? I don't remember what it was. So let's say 10 days to split the difference. 10 days to 2 weeks. Before that, and giving my cats to take down there. No, do I think that they were going to steal my cats? Absolutely not. I don't think that. But I don't know. Something with the deal doesn't set right with me. I've got the cats. That I want you to give me a price on them. And you're so committed on it that you're going to take them from Alpena, Michigan, all the way back to Illinois, and then you don't want them. So I don't know. The whole deal really didn't set well with me. Is there any hard feelings? Absolutely not. I'll sell them probably. I would say I can't say that I'll sell them something, but I will. Definitely let them give me a price on stuff. We catch a lot of fur. Some of it's for the predator control, and we get rid of it. Some of it, but we keep part like the cats. We're in Iowa. We get a lot of coon. We get a lot of fur, and they buy a lot of fur. So, I don't burn bridges, and but. Like I say, I just, telling what my experience was on selling these cats. So, and then it just is what it is. If anybody's upset because I'm telling the story, too effing bad. It's just too effing bad because it's my story and I can tell it. And if you wanted it differently, then you should have acted differently. So, but like I say, there is no hard feelings. At least on my side. So, anyway, so I start calling around. I talked to Terry Manley down to Indiana. Well, he got a hold of me on Facebook, and he says, "What do you want for them cats?" I said, $150. And he's okay. I can't just commit to $150. Without looking at them. I said, well, I totally get that. So he was going to come up to northern Michigan, mushroom picking, and get a hold of me. So I don't hear nothing. This is all going on, Anyways, I come to find out he bought another guy's cats. I have, recently found out, and so he starts telling me rather than, hey, I bought a bunch of cats and that, if you'd have beat him here, then you'd have been the winner. And he told me, he says, you want $150 for them cats, and those cats are not even worth $100. I'm like, I know that they're worth $100 because that's what I've gotten for them, and when the price was lower than this, Clint would average $225 sometimes on them cats. So $100 is not out of line for them cats. Are they, Idaho cats or Montana cats? No, but they're way better than a Michigan cat, on the average. I mean, they got big spots. They just got short fur. I mean, you're down, southern Texas. So, anyways, I always end up hearing about all this stuff, everything that happens, But he didn't want to. He said, nope, they're not even worth $100. If you want to bring them down, I'll go through them. But I'm just telling you, they're not even worth $100. So I'm like, okay, nope. I'm not going down there on a deficit, driving from northern Michigan to Indiana, or even driving 5 feet out of my way to sell, have somebody look at the fur that is already negative about it. I mean, that would be stupid to do that. And so, come to find out, he had already bought another guy's cats, and I found out asked the guy, what did he pay for them? He says, he gave me $100. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. He goes and tells me that my cats caught in the same area are not worth $100, but he had just paid $100 for the same type of cat. So I'm like, well, not burning no bridges, but I see this one smoking. So, anyways, so then Trevor Barnes wanted to buy them. I had another good guy buy a lot of glands off of stuff out South Dakota. Want to give a price, and he said that the best he could do, and was, I think it was like $75. I think, I can't remember. And I was telling him, I says, I got to get more than that. And on 120 some cats, $25 is quite a bit to me. And my thing is I'm not where, basically how I'd like to run it is they say, you know what, I can get $130 out of these cats. I got to make 25 on the cats, even though they're dealing in raccoons that they're only making, $1 on. But, I don't mind leaving some meat on the bone. I mean, there's got to be some meat on the bone for the fur buyer, or there's no sense them doing it. I mean, yes, a lot of them love to do it and would do it for nothing, but they can't do it for nothing because it costs money to do all this stuff. They have the lights on, the heat, to dry the stuff, the dehumidifiers to keep the moisture out of them, the bugs and everything else. There's a lot of expense that goes into buying fur, and you have your money tied up. So I don't mind leaving meat on the bone. I'd rather just have somebody say, you know what, this is what I got to make on these, and and work from there. That they grade them out and put them in 22 different piles, and then I got one raccoon at $25, and and then the next raccoon's at $3, and then the next one's at $1. I don't like them games. I just want somebody to be honest with me and say, you know what, go through the coons, and they say, I'll give you, $7 nose count or $8 nose count. I mean, that's what they're looking for. I sold for overseas, and what they're looking for is a certain grade, so many triples, so many doubles, so many number 2s, so many number 3s, got to be usually in that grade, right? So, and then, so you had to have a certain grade right down from the good to the bad, and you get X amount of dollars. We were getting $27 for that grade. That was, I don't know, in the 90s, late 90s. And, so, like I said, I'm sure most of you are like that too. That you just rather, say, hey, I'll, have them look at the coon, $7 nose count or whatever. Not the, one in the big good pile and then everything else is shit. It just, it's not no. It takes the fun out of it. None of us are going out there to get rich. Maybe the best we can hope for is to pay, half of the light bill, right now. So, it just takes the fun out of it that, they, that when it's like that. I don't enjoy it. And, I was at a fur sale one time, and I just come back from Louisiana, and I'm standing there, and I don't know, I run some of the otters through, and I know what they were selling for down there. I don't remember exactly what it was now, but it was in the $100 otter days, and it was just starting to drop. Like in 2013, probably 2014, something like that. And the price, you could figure $100 bill on every otter, and 120, even a little bit higher. And I stand there running them through, and one of the fur buyers says to me, I said, no sale. I mean, they're going, I don't know, but for like $40 or something. And I'm like, no sale, no sale, no sale. Nope, it won't sell for that. And they said, I can buy every otter in Louisiana. This is in Michigan. I said, in their spring sale. I said, he says, I can buy every otter in Louisiana for, X amount. And I just come from there, and I was at, Mr. Jimmy's down to RP Outdoors, and, he bought more otter than anybody. And, I mean, I knew what the prices were down there, and they're paying more down in Louisiana than they wanted to pay for those. So I'm like, okay. And the guy was standing, right behind me, and he's giving me lip, and I'm like, I turned around and I said, you can close your effing mouth, or I can close it for you. The thing is it wasn't personal with me. It was just a business transaction where I have a product, you want to buy the product. I want this amount, you want to pay this amount, we meet in the middle. But with him, he was creating it to be, it was becoming personal. And to me, it's not a personal thing. It's just a business transaction. That's in the end, that's all it is. I have a product, they want to buy the product, we meet in the middle, and you sell them, or you don't. But I've had met trucks before where they took the fur, and I didn't want to sell the rats. It was 2010, 11, something like that, and they, I sold the coon. I didn't want to sell the rats, and they threw them at me back through the window. And it wouldn't take 100 guesses to figure out who that was. And that never sat well with me. So if you buy fur, people just, I mean, the thing is people say crooked fur buyer. There's no crooked fur buyer. They've got to make money. And the thing is, you can't be crooked if he offers something and you take it. It's like Grunwald. He wasn't crooked for paying me $2.50 for $6 raccoon. I didn't have to take it. There was nothing crooked. We made a business transaction. That's all it was. Was I happy with the price? Absolutely not. Was he happy with the price? Probably he wasn't happy either. He'd have liked to give me $20. He doesn't want to, do that. But it just is what it is. And, so basically if you're a fur buyer, all people want to do is be treated, like you'd like to be treated. And, if you're a trapper dealing with the fur buyer, realize he does have to make some money. And, he don't have to make it all on you. If you got a $100 bobcat, I wouldn't sell it to him for $10. I mean, he ain't got to make his whole damn check on you. So, anyways, speaking of the bobcats, what I've been doing is the last couple nights I've been doing it, is going through, because we set out a ton of cameras, tax cameras, and paying them by the month is no fun. But we just had it for like 2 months, and but we wanted to learn as much as we could, and because that's just what I enjoy. I enjoy learning about the animal, and it makes me a better trapper and better lure and bait maker to see how they react to stuff. And the what I've come to the conclusion on is the more that I learn, the dumber I really am. I mean, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's like I think I know. Generally, the bobcats react this way and do that and do this, and and you're wrong sometimes. I'm wrong so much. I mean, it's pathetic how wrong I am. I mean, we caught 140 this year, and I don't think I know shit. I watch the cameras, and the cat walks by, and he walks up to the set, and then, he does this, and then he does a cut through behind the set, and the thing is, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try and show some of that footage, but I'm going to try and do some videos with that footage where it's like a talk over, where I'm explaining, the set's here, this is what's happening, rather than just put the video up and then people draw their own conclusions and they're wrong because they don't know where the sets are, they don't know this, they don't know that, and, then the people say, trapping bobcats is easy. I set out 6 coyote sets and caught 2 bobcats. Yeah, but you weren't trapping for bobcats. You were trapping for coyotes and accidentally caught a bobcat. I mean, I used to think I was a hell of a otter trapper when I was in Michigan. I didn't know nothing. I didn't know nothing until I got where there was a lot of otter, and I really started learning, a lot of how they change their habits with pressure put on them, and same way with the bobcats. I mean. I go out here in Michigan and set bobcat sets, and I could catch bobcats. But, until I start going out of state where I'm just trying to catch every single bobcat I can. And then especially when I start putting the cameras on, first the otter and the beaver and the water animals down in Louisiana to see how they reacted. And I'm like, they reacted this, where they won't go through the traps and stuff, where normally, you would go down to the set and you would check it, nothing. Come back next day, check it, nothing. Come back next day, you got a beaver. Then you check it for a couple more days. And this is like a crossover, and you just think, well, the one beaver came through. But you put the camera on it, and an otter comes up there and sniffs the trap and goes around it, and another otter, and 2 beaver, and a nutria, and you've had all kinds of activity by your trap. Anyways, so basically that got in my head, trying to figure this all out, and then so I like, if the bobcats or if the otter and the beaver are like this, then how tough? What do the coyotes and the cats do on land? It's got to be way worse than this. Because the trap placement's different. I mean, I'm blocking down with a 330 the whole crossover. They can't go around hardly. I got it all blocked in, camo down, and they still see that trap and won't go through it sometimes. So, it's got to be way worse on land with, bedding that trap, trying to blend it in. And I was right. It is way worse, because you do everything you can and you set up that cat set, and there he goes, just chicken necking. So you see that he sees that set and has interest in it, but he doesn't go over there. And then you get them doing the same thing, and then they'll come back around and walk up to your set and approach it from a different way than what you had it set up, or they'll do this or do that, and it's just a freaking nightmare. On a lot of our cat sets, we started using 2 traps, so we start seeing the footage that it's hard to control. On some of the sets we were making, there was that was pulling the cats in. Not every cat, but pulling cats in. It was hard to pattern where they exactly was going to step. We'd block them in and stuff, but we would, it was better with two traps on one drag, and it started being a lot better because we could set one back and set one forward, and then whatever way they went. So basically on the I encourage anybody if you got trail cams to definitely go out and set them because you'll find that you're going to learn more off of that than watching most people's videos or going to demos or anything because that's on your trap line. You can even go out and make mock sets and draw a circle with your finger and then try and get them to step in the circle and see how they react to it. And so you'll learn more off of that because that ground and you'll see them do stuff and react to stuff in a place that and learn so much from it. But like I say, I'm going to try and put out. I'm not going to try. I'm going to put out and see how it works on doing the voiceover. I ain't too confident in the voiceover part, but I'm definitely going to put them out. So because I that footage we have will definitely help people, and a lot of people, say, well, come out with a Bobcat DVD or whatever. I'm done with that part of my life. I don't want to come out with any DVDs. I just want to put out footage and help people, help trappers. I don't have to, I got DVDs, probably the next couple years, probably end up, taking them right off the market. My opinions, changed on a lot of stuff. I think differently now than on even raccoon trapping than the first raccoon trapping video I made. Well, is there information in there that would help somebody starting out? Absolutely. But there's some things I've changed my mind on. But that's the way it should be. If you're stuck in the same thing that you were doing 20 years ago, you should have learned something to make you better and change your opinion. That happens to me all the time. And with the cat trapping, I definitely keep my mind not fixed on I know this and I'm not going to change. I'm as fluid to change by what I see as the ocean is, or water. That's how fluid I am to change in a second. And I'm not talking about change everything, just something to key on that I see them doing. Like I say, when we started putting two traps because we could see we couldn't control their foot, their foot pattern and stuff, like we wanted to. And the name of the game is when you get there to have something in the trap or traps. It doesn't matter. Like some people will probably say, I can use just one trap. Great. I couldn't. I'm not as great as you. I don't claim to be as great or wonderful. I just do what I do and try and make it work and successful. I don't. If I thought setting 3 traps would be better, I'd set 3. I don't care. My thing is I'm past the point in my life where I'm trying to impress somebody and do something have just one trap. When we're coyote trapping, do we use 2? Sometimes. Most of the time we're using 1. If I'm gonna do like a chimney type set, that I'm talking about is because like if you put a dirt hole in, right? You put a dirt hole in, and then you figure you don't have a flue on that, so there's just a little bit trickling out of that hole. If you go on the back side of that and take like just a little rod, and then you punch a hole down into your dirt hole to give that a flue through there, it'll push that smell out a lot better, right? But if the wind switches on you and coming out the back way on that set, then that is where you put the flue in, then that's where the scent's coming out and where they're going to come up to. So on that set, I always back set it, because you got the predominant wind. And then, anymore with the weather, like today, it's 60 degrees. It was 100 degrees yesterday, 100 degrees the day before. It's gonna be 83 tomorrow. It ain't like the old days. Where it's constant weather patterns. It's up and down, up and down. It's been like that for like 2 years now, or longer, and so that's why I use that flu set that so when that wind changes, they're not working the back of that set, and I don't have a trap there. But so like in them type of sets, or if I get dug out, and back set them, they'll have two traps. But generally, on like coyote trapping, we just use generally one, unless it's like something like I described, or a blind set. But we you only can go out there and do the best that you can do. I mean, that's all. And the thing is to me, trying different things is the fun part. I mean, I don't want to go out and punch in 100 dirt holes all day long. I mean, I like going and getting there, and like down to Texas, they got lots of loose dirt and sand, and I can see tracks. Where here in northern Michigan, you don't see a lot of coyote tracks. But I like to go look around and dink around and set the traps, and me and Sarah's mentality on it are about the same. So it doesn't cause problems, except for she likes checking, and I like setting. If I could just go and set, and then never go back, or go check it once and then never go back, I would be perfectly content. I just like setting. Where Sarah, she's like most people, not everybody, but most people, she doesn't like the setting as much as checking. If she had to do one or the other, she would check, and I'm the opposite. So what I'd like to do is just put them on one time, put them on GPS, and I go set them and she checks them, but we just enjoy going together doing it. So, and I think if she didn't set the trap, she wouldn't enjoy checking as much. And especially with the coyotes, most times she kicks my ass. So, I mean, she's gotten to be a really good coyote trapper on picking, the micro locations. I mean, I almost have, if you see a tuft of grass or something that like just sticks out where it's screaming coyote, you better be at breakneck speed getting up there, because otherwise you're gonna hear her pounding in her set over there, and she moves quicker than I do anymore. So, but she definitely does a great job, and I've been really really blessed to have her in my life, and be able to go have all the trapping adventures with her. I mean, just this last year we, did, trips of a lifetime, 4 or 5 times, and, going to New York and fisher trapping, and, with Chappie, and, going down to Texas with Albert, and going to, Arkansas with Carl and Liz from Razorback Snares, and, I mean, it's just, we're blessed to have friends, where we can go do that stuff, and to have Chappie come out to Iowa coon trapping with us, and, Nick and Jeff come down there, and, it's just, we're very blessed to have the trapping friends that are really like family, in our lives. And, the thing is, if you're out there and want to go do that stuff, you can have that same thing. I mean, you go to the conventions and meet somebody and start talking to them and get to be friends with them, and then, opens up the door to go do stuff together. And, I used to trap alone all the time. All the time. I never trapped with anybody that wasn't family. I was raised where, a friend today is an enemy tomorrow, talking about, business stuff, and you don't teach anybody anything. And, it was, and when I got into this business, got back into it, because my dad had done it for years, and I did it, went as a kid and then as a teenager, and then the price dropped out, and he, just sold locally. I told myself, I think I'm going to start going back to conventions. And he said, if you're going to go to conventions and you're going to really try this, you can't make the mistake that I made. I said, well, what was that? And he said, you got to tell what you know, and teach people everything you know. You can't keep anything back. And I've tried to adhere to that advice. Whatever I know about bobcat trapping, I'm going to tell you or show people at demos or do videos on it. Everything I know, which turns out by the cameras isn't a hell of a lot, but when I learn one little trick, I'm going to share that. I don't keep anything back on in the trapping. I try to show everything that I know, and somebody goes out and catches 100 bobcats a year. Can I help them? Probably not. But they might pick up one little thing. I know I would pick up something from them. The guy that's just getting into it and lives in northern Michigan and wants to catch one bobcat, it might help him. And that's who I'm trying to help. Turns out I know less than it turns out I know less than I thought I did, and I thought I didn't know a lot. So it's fun. It's really fun just learning the animals and finding one little trick that works. And the weird thing is we go down there and do that this year, and you go down there next year, and you make the same set, and the set doesn't work. So you got to figure out all over again. So anyway, I guess that'll be where we'll close. But hoping to see a lot of you at the conventions. I appreciate so much everybody coming up, and Trapper's been good to me my whole life. And basically, if it wasn't for Trappers, I wouldn't have anything. And I just appreciate everybody coming to conventions, and they buy stuff off us and sit around and bullshit, and we have a lot of fun. And I know you could go down the row and buy off somebody else, and probably have success with their stuff, but you choose to come and buy mine, and I really do appreciate that. And I try and put out a good product. I want you to be successful, and I guess I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you, and I want to hear your trapping tales, and I just love hearing some crazy thing that happened on your line this year. I just it's just fun. If you learned a little trick, I'm open to anything that you want to share, and I am not too proud to try and learn or pick up a trick or anything. So just stop by the booth. Me and Sarah will be glad to see you at the Nationals. We'll have Chuck there, and Chuck's thing is Chuck says sniffs are or not sniffs, smells are free. So if Chuck said it, it's got to be true. And that would be Chuck that you don't know how to say his last name if you're on Facebook. It's Chuck CZHEZKI or something like that. Anyways, how you say his name, and you're going to be laughing, is Chuck Chunky. That's how you say his name. How they come up with Chunky on that, I have no freaking idea. But anyways, I know Chuck for a long time. I mean, after a while, you're like, shit, I hate to ask him what his damn last name is. So I'd had a few beers, which I ain't drinking these days, but I had a few beers, and I asked him, I says, what in the hell is your name? And last name, Chuck. And he says, Chuck Chunky. And then he explained the whole thing. If you care about the story, ask Chuck at the booth, his whole story on the Chuck Chunky. If you know his last name, it is definitely not Chunky. So at least I never seen that on any candy bar, any type of chocolate where it said Chunky was not spelled like Chuck's last name. So So anyways, we'll see you hopefully at one of the conventions. If you're going to be at them, ones that we're not going to be at, you always can buy our products from any of the wholesalers. You can buy them on cheatraps.com. Predator Control Group, which we own, you can buy that. Dunlap Lures, you have to go somewhere else, because if we sent that out, I wouldn't be able to tell you all my bobcat trapping stories. I would have to sit home and send stuff out. So anyways, I'm out of here. See you at the conventions.